Hi, folks. This is part 2 of my Sunday reflection. I said that in today's gospel, Jesus says he wants to bring fire upon the earth. And then he goes on to warn his disciples and us that there will be divisions. There will be father against son, and mother against daughter, and mother-in-law against daughter-in-law. And this too seems disturbing because Jesus is supposed to be the Prince of Peace. He's gathering people to himself and healing divisions and reconciling and creating a new kind of community and a relationship in which divisions are no more. So why is he talking about divisions? Well, I hinted at this in the end of my last video, where I pointed out that if we take a stand for Jesus and his way of life, if we live for the gospel, we are doing so in a world that is opposed to Jesus and the gospel, and therefore there will be divisions. And he's letting us know, he's warning us, he's helping us to anticipate that there will be divisions and expect them. And we should not be naive and think that choosing Jesus and the gospel is going to make life wonderful and easy. In some ways it will, but in other ways it won't, because there are forces in our world, there are all kinds of political and economic and cultural systems and institutions. There are all kinds of communities and relationships that are opposed to the gospel. And as I mentioned in the last video, the gospel calls us to respect all people, because every person's created in the image and likeness of God. It doesn't matter whether they have insurance, whether they have a passport, whether they're gay or straight, whether they're Catholic or not. Every person created by God has to be respected, and therefore should have access to the fundamental needs of life, like food and safety and shelter, and education and health care. In addition, the gospel calls us to forgive others, to act with mercy and compassion, to stand up for peace and justice. And that's going to bring opposition. And that opposition we're going to find in the world. We're going to find that opposition within the church, within our families, and even within ourselves. So the first thing I want you to understand in today's video is expect opposition and confrontation. The second thing I want you to realize is that you should expect it within yourself. There's going to be part of you that wants to hold on to grudges. There's going to be part of you that wants to lash out in violence, to do cruel things. There are going to be parts of you that don't want to cooperate with the gospel. You should expect this. But at the same time, we have 3 resources that Jesus gives us to help us deal with these divisions and these conflicts within our world, within the church, within our family, and within ourselves. And let me share with you what those 3 resources are. The first one is this: the Holy Spirit has been poured out upon our families and friendships, our church community, upon each of us. And so we now have access to divine life. We don't simply have to rely on our own limited resources for handling the divisions and conflicts in our world. We can actually have access to the infinite, inexhaustible life of God that can give us new ideas and new ways of relating, that can perhaps sometimes help us not say something, or help us to say things in a different way, to come up with new creative solutions to problems. So the first thing we have as individuals and as a community is the Holy Spirit. And we have to learn to draw on that Spirit and not simply give in to our most default responses that we've inherited from our family and society. The second resource we have, of course, is Jesus. In the letter to the Hebrews in this weekend's readings, there's this magnificent image of the Christian life. And it says that as Christians, we are runners in a race, and we're trying to get to the goal. And the good news is that as we're running, Jesus runs alongside us, but he's ahead of us. He is the goal. And so the other resource we have is his company, his presence, but also to keep our eyes on him. Often we want to look at all kinds of other things, and that if we keep our eyes at all kinds of other things but Jesus, we can allow those distorted responses to come up. But if we keep our eyes on him, new ways of handling the divisions and conflicts in our world will emerge. He is with us and he's ahead of us. Now, part of this image of the Christian life as running a race that Hebrews uses says that we're carrying a backpack that's filled with all kinds of stuff that our society and our families have put on us. It's the wounds and sins of the world. And Hebrews is calling us to unload that backpack. Get rid of those habits and attitudes and wounds that are weighing you down. And let the Lord and let Jesus reveal to you what are those attitudes and habits and behaviors that are weighing you down and preventing you from running that race. And finally, there's a third resource that we have. And that is what the letter to the Hebrews calls the cloud of witnesses. Now, there are two kinds of witnesses that we're surrounded by. There is the visible church, our friends and family, our local Catholic community. But then there's the invisible church. And I think Catholics have forgotten about this. We call it the communion of saints. These are our supporters, those friends and family and parents who have died and gone ahead of us. And they're not like way up there somewhere. They're here with us because it's the risen Jesus who is with us and with them, who unites us with these supporters. And so, my friends, take advantage of these resources. The visible communion of saints, the invisible supporters that we have, the presence of Jesus as we run the race, and the power and riches of the Holy Spirit. I'll see you in the next video.